Good morning and welcome to the new edition of Dr. Lamba's Awakening Call. Balochistan has been making news, and recently a young, capable, freedom loving Baloch girl was found killed in Toronto itself. What's the issue with Balochistan is something which is worth considering. There's complaint of ethnic cleaning, there's a complaint of harassment, and it's amazing that a country which was established to protect Muslims, there the Muslims should not be happy. We remember what happened in 1971-73 when Bangladesh people were terrorized, killed, women raped, and ultimately that led to this dissection of Pakistan resulting in birth of Bangladesh. Is Balochistan going to be the next Bangladesh? Now, there are certain similarities. Bangladesh has a long coastal belt, so has Balochistan, and its long coastal belt extends from Karachi through Somaini, Ormara, Kalmat, Pasni, Gwadar, Jiwani, and it goes all the way up to Iran. So, geographically, it's one of the most important areas. This part of the world is also popular for its hilltops and rugged mountainous terrain. Having a population of about 12.34 million, not a big population, it is one of the four provinces of Pakistan. And area wise is the largest province in terms of land area. It is the southwestern region of the country and its area is 347 square kilometers. 44% of Pakistan is in Balochistan. And if this part of the world, the country, separates and becomes a new country, the remaining Pakistan would just be 50% of what is today. That is, primarily it would be Punjab and Sindh. And Sindh also wants to be independent. You remember GA Sindh movement, which was very strong in the 70s. But later on, it has been quiet on the front. But that doesn't mean people are quiet. And Balochis live not only in Pakistan, they also live in Iran. They are fighting in Pakistan and they are fighting in Iran. And their claim is like Kurds. They want to be independent. So there's nothing wrong in wanting to be independent, especially if you are being terrorized and the Balochis are being terrorized. You remember, Pakhtunistan and Balochistan wanted to be with India or they wanted to be independent. They had never been even under the British government. They used to be independent. I wouldn't call it independent, but they were at least autonomous. And since 2012, the separatist movement is gaining ground in Iran and in Pakistan. The majority is Sunni Baloch. They are anti-Shia ideology, and their fight is against the Shia Islamist Iranian government on one side. On the other side, though they are Shia, they are not in favor of Pakistan. And root cause is economic. Balochistan lacks facilities like education, hospitals, and according to the Pakistan government, They say that we did not set up the facilities here because the Balochis would not make use of them or they would abuse them. Most of the people who understand Balochistan history would agree. The present struggle cannot be separated and isolated. It's a part of the movement which started in 1948. If you remember, this struggle was started, an armed struggle by Aga Abdul Karim in 1948, and they called it illegal annexation by Pakistan. So this armed struggle is a sort of a self-defense. But it's not possible to liberate Balochistan by this moment. And now comes a very strange news. For the first time in the history of the world, a government is fencing its own city. Federal government of Pakistan is planning to fence the port town of its very prestigious place called Gawada. And they call it for the security reasons. And the Balochs call it a conspiracy. And they say they will not permit the fencing of the Gawada. This discontent is a part of the wider social skepticism. And that is building up slowly against Islamabad led mega economic development projects, especially multi billion dollar CPEC, one road, one belt, Pakistan. Gwadar, the Chinese presence over there, is irritating the Balochistan. They don't like it. And they do not agree what civilian and the military elite in Pakistan say that it will be a mega economic development in Balochistan. They do not accept that it's going to give them something which they badly need. We cannot deny that many times even poorly designed and ill planned economic interventions can prove counterproductive. And this warrants a dispassionate review of the state. Successful economic development needs to be sustainable and it cannot proceed without first achieving a minimum level of peace. It's a misfortune of Pakistan that it could never be inclusive. Religion by itself can never be a binding factor, at least not in this age. It was not inclusive, it was against Bengali language, Bengali culture, and the result was Bangladesh. It is being cruel to the Balochistan, and if you remember long back, the Pashtun leader, Frontier Gandhi, had told Congress, "You have thrown us to the wolves." You remember for the first time in the history, General Ayub Khan had started carpet bombing in Pakhtunistan and Balochistan. So this is leading to a situation where Balochistan feels excluded. It is leading to a situation where the military assumes a greater role, not only in security matters, but also in economic development intervention. On the one side, it raises militarization of the region, which creates anger, especially among people like Balochistan, who have a long history of local resentment towards security checkposts and cantonments. The Baloch fear, and very rightly, that increased militarization would intensify repression and further restrict their movement. On the other hand, military driven economic intervention can create issues of legitimacy. So, political elements in Balochistan, I have talked to them and they tell me that they have complete great reservations about CPEC, one road, and also associated militarization. If you talk to the fishermen in Gwadar, that's the local population, they are being displaced and dispossessed of their own land. And this new scheme of fencing of Gwadar, being done at the instigation of China, will consolidate their fears further. And not only that, the non exclusive extractive model of development, which is being pushed by the ruling elite in Islamabad, is leading to delegitimization of parliament system and is alienating even those political voices of Baloch who were in favor of Pakistan. Baloch nationalist parties which adhere to non-violent parliamentary means have been criticized by Baloch insurgents for giving legitimacy, and now they are having second thoughts. The third issue is that the militarized approach is putting off prospective investors and the foreign governments. And they think that the enhanced security measures are going to be self-defeating. Attracting foreign investment in such an environment is bound to be difficult, if not impossible. The civilian and military elites need to realize that mega development projects cannot succeed with local buy-in and ownership. Repression and development cannot go hand in hand. Local support has to be shown by adopting the objective of peace building. So the current political situation in Balochistan is very fragile, very exclusionary. Under these circumstances, the government should have been careful. The military in Pakistan needs to realize and appreciate that a hard approach can only result in very temporary peace at best, and a low level insurgency would continue almost indefinitely. Complete suppression of Baloch insurgency is impossible. Gwadar's fencing is likely to intensify feelings of deprivation and marginalization. Now the question arises, what should India do? India has already claimed that Jammu and Kashmir as one unit, including Azad Jammu and Kashmir. Azad Kashmir, which is under the control of Pakistan, is a part of Jammu and Kashmir. That all the governments of India have been saying. But the new government under Modi is much more proactive. They have also laid claims to Gilgit and Balochistan. And if we look at it, an independent Balochistan would definitely be of benefit to these 12 million odd people. But it will be a geopolitical investment by India in the region. Balochistan's energy resources are vast, and India's energy and needs are much more because of the emerging economy and the growing economy. Secondly, it has to compete with China and other countries. And China is militarizing, as I said, Balochistan's coastal areas. So what will it result in? It will result in a battle stranglehold on India. So post-independent Balochistan will not be launching pad for aggression against any state, but it will bring peace and harmony in the region. And the conflict resolution would be easier. So it's in India's interest that Balochistan should be independent. Secondly, with 40% or 44% of Pakistan area being separated, another Bangladesh being there, Pakistan would be weakened further and would possibly not be that much of a problem as it is today. It will be more concerned with maintaining its economic development and feeding the people in Punjab and Sindh. And as I said earlier, now India has been relying on the West and other countries, but there is no thought coming in that it's much safer and effective to have real allies next door. And what's the best thing than to have Balochis and Pashtuns as allies? Now, if the Balochis and Pashtuns are pro-India, which they are, and with Azad Kashmir merging into India, the distance between Indian border and Balochistan would be a few hundred kilometers only, about 120 kilometers. And that would enable India to have better outlet to Iran, to Afghanistan, and to other countries. Not only that, China's rising and building military islands in South China Sea would be counterbalanced by their not being so powerful in Gwadar and other areas. And let's not forget, Middle East is changing. New bases, new bases are being made, military installations are being built in Balochistan, and that is aimed at Middle East. Now let's not forget that. China is closer to Iran, and Iran is against the Muslim countries of Middle East, especially Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Jordan, and others. So these military islands in Balochistan are a danger to India and a danger to Middle East. So this coming together of Middle East and India at the same time. And India should now actually start helping Balochistan. And I think what Trump did yesterday should be a signal. He has already said that in Tibet they will not recognize the Dalai Lama being imposed by China. So India can do the same thing. And they can intervene, not directly, but they can give them economic help. By the way, there is a question here from Mr. Singh Jaspa. He says, can independent Balochistan sustain itself? Definitely. Let's not forget two factors, major factors. A, it has the longest coastal belt, so it can be a great seafaring and trading country. It need not be restrained, chained, and checked by Pakistan's needs. It can have much greater commerce, and actually it can be a counterpoise to Dubai and Singapore. But Singapore is in Southeast Asia. Balochistan can be in this part of the country. As I said, it's going up to Iran, Middle East. So this is a great sea. Then sea has a lot of minerals, chemicals. So it can have that bromine industry in a great way. Then it has huge energy resources. In the beginning also I had said that there are huge energy resources. So it can have a manufacturing units based on sea chemicals, the marine chemicals. It can have desalination plants. It can have great energy which it can supply to even to Pakistan and Afghanistan and India. It can be a trading nation. And Singapore, with a 7 million population, only because of trading is one of the largest, strongest economies of the world. So why not Balochistan? And they're hardy people. So it's quite possible, yes, it can sustain itself. And then let's not deny, now coming back to that, the independence of Balochistan would benefit India in the long run. In case Balochistan does not become independent, then it will be difficult for India in the long run to protect its national interest. The Balochistan independence will determine not only both nations' future, but partly the future of India as well. So I don't know why India should strain at a net. They should not go the whole way in supporting Balochistan. If Pakistan can support Khalistani movement in India, if Pakistan can help farmers protest, thereby paralyzing part of the country, why should India keep on riding the high horse of morality and reducing the strength of Pakistan is important for India so that it can progress by itself economically. And not only that, Balochistan is going to be a friendly nation. And the economies of the two countries, Balochistan and India, would be complementary. They'll not be supplementary, they'll be complementary, and that's a big thing. So it's imperative for India. I don't know what the present government is doing, but at one time the thought was that Indian forces, military and non-military, politically, diplomatically, should try to ensure that Pakistan is a real federal state where the states, the provinces have a right to secede. When Bangladesh became independent, the thought was that GSN movement should be encouraged, Pashtun movement should be encouraged, Baloch movement should be encouraged. Then the remaining part of the Pakistan would only be Punjab. And that was a very sensible policy. The policy was shelved when Morarji Desai became the prime minister. Otherwise, things might have changed for the better. Anyway, Balochistan need to be independent is there. It needs a diplomatic effort and material support to be independent. And India, along with Saudi Arabia and other Middle Eastern countries, should not shy away from building Balochistan as a bulwark against Iran and China. And the sooner they do, the better it would be, because Balochis are against Iran, the religious aspect, the cultural aspect. So let's see how the geopolitical game is played. But the need is there to have new policies, more proactive policies, and reach Balochistan independence. Sooner, the better. Thank you.